I will now take the sediment for this meeting of the Planning Local Review Body held on the 26th of August 2024. The following members are present: Councillors Ali Callison, Jerry Convery, Colin Dewar, Gladys Ferguson Miller. Councillor Elise Frame is not present. And the following members are present: Councillors Leslie MacDonald, Richard Nelson, Norman Ray, Graham Scott and David Shearer. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Agenda item number 1 then. Is any declarations of interest? Agenda item number 2 is the minutes of the previous meeting. These are on pages 5 to 10, submitted for approval as a correct record. I'll move these as correct.
I'll second it.
Everyone agreed? Agreed, thank you. Agenda item number 3 is, as previously advised by Stuart the Clerk on Friday, the review in case of respective planning application P231524 has been withdrawn at the request of the applicant, if this can be removed from today's papers. We will then move on to agenda item number 4, as review of case in respect of planning application P231389. These are pages 109 to 224 in your pack. And that item before us today is a notice of review from Paul Crawford on behalf of Mr and Mrs David and Jacqueline Learmouth. The applicant is asking the PLRB to review the planning officer determination to refuse an application for the subdivision of garden ground and erection of a dwelling house on land at Brayhead of Preathgill near Straven. Details of the proposals, the officer's report of handling and the information submitted by the applicant are provided in the papers that we have been distributed, and these are on members' pages 109 to 224. The first point then for the PLRB to consider and decide is how we proceed with this review. The applicant has indicated that they consider further written submissions, a hearing session and a site investigation are required in the determination of this review. Taking account of what is in our papers, we have to decide whether they do in fact contain sufficient information for us to determine the review today, or if we need more written information, a hearing or a visit to the site. I personally think that all the information we have, plus the detailed photographs we have of the site, does provide us with all we need to consider this review. Do the members therefore agree that we can proceed without a site visit, hearing or additional information?
Agreed.
All agreed. Anyone otherwise minded, please indicate now. We will then proceed to open the review, and I will now open the review for discussion or comments. If you can please indicate now. Okay, I will then summarise the points made. The application is for the erection of a dwelling house on land near to Straven. If we consider that there is no valid policy justification to support the erection of a new dwelling house at this location and it would not accord with the development plan, permission can be refused. Or, if we consider that there is adequate justification for the erection of a new dwelling house, we could grant planning permission subject to conditions. I will now invite any decisions and the reasons behind these decisions. Are members minded then to uphold the officer's decision to refuse planning permission?
Agreed.
Agreed. Is anyone else otherwise minded? No. Therefore, the decision of the PLRB is to refuse planning permission for the reasons set out in the decision notice issued on the 23rd of January 2024. We'll now move on to agenda item number 5. There's a review of case in respect of planning application P230980. These are pages 225 to 424. The item before us today is a notice of review from Robert Murray, Business and Project Consultant, on behalf of Mr Sangeka. The PLRB is asked to review the planning officer determination to refuse planning application P230980 for the erection of a 1.5-storey dwelling house with detached double garage at land 48 metres east, south-east of the Old Buy, Liberton Village Road, Liberton and Lanark. Details of the proposal, the officer's report of handling and the information submitted by the applicant are provided in the papers that our members have, and again these are on pages 225 to 424. The first point for the PLRB to consider and decide is how to proceed with this review. The applicant has indicated that they consider both a hearing session and a site investigation as required in the determination of review. Taking account of what is in the papers, we have to decide whether they do in fact contain sufficient information for us to determine a review today, or if we need more written information, a hearing or a visit to the site. Again, I do think that all the information we have, plus the detailed photographs of the site, provides us with all we need to consider this review. Do the members therefore agree that we can proceed without a site visit, hearing or additional information?
Agreed.
Anyone otherwise minded? Okay, we will then proceed to the review, and I will ask if any members have any questions or if they wish to clarify anything that is included in the papers. If you could please indicate now. Online, I'll take Councillor Scott, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to raise a point. This is the one item today that really jumped off the agenda at me, and in relation to the old problem. When is a brownfield site not a brownfield site? If you read the report, if you look at in the handling report, section 1.2, the first phrase it says is, "This site comprises of previously utilised ground." Obviously, that's not the normal definition of a greenfield site. And later on in that report, it makes reference to a brick-built shed or stables area that was semi-demolished, and there's remnants still there. And there's constant reference to the ground that has been utilised as brownfield. Again, maybe it's something is down to the individual member, but I've got to be honest, and I know I'd use this in my own ward. I'd rather see a house on a brownfield site than the remnants of a brick-built shed or whatever. If the officers can clarify the arcane rules of NPF 4 in relation to when is a brownfield site not a brownfield site. Thank you, Chair.
I'll ask Pamela to answer that question.
Thank you, Chair. I think with regards to this case in particular, it's not just the case of is it greenfield or is it brownfield. There's also, can it be renaturalised? And that has been referred to in the delegated report, or the report of handling that was submitted. And it's also taken into account the supporting information submitted by the applicant as well about the condition of the land. So the case officer has taken into account in the assessment that there is potential for this ground to become naturalised again. So it's not just has it been previously developed, it's also in the decision, is there a potential for it to go back to a nature use? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alec Allison, please. Yeah, just put Alec on. You didn't ask for a supplementary.
Right. Sorry, just very much on the same lines as what Councillor Scott was saying. This is actually the site of the traditional steading, and I think the legislation says something along the lines of not being able to regenerate without a substantial input. And you could not, this will not revert without that level of input, foundations, floors, etc. So therefore, item 3 for refusal is simply wrong. Item 2, the level of biodiversity in an old building, which this basically is, although its walls have gone, is limited. So item 2 I don't think is reasonable. And item 1, the settlement boundary, it is within the curtilage of the old steading where there has already been development, and therefore I actually think that this is a good place to have a house, as it also helps with a rural population, which is supposedly one of the policies in NPF 4 as well. So therefore, I would actually move that this is accepted.
Councillor Allison, thank you. I'll come back to you just in a moment. I'll take further questions or comments. Councillor David Shearer, thank you.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah, we can hear you, Councillor Shearer.
Thank you. Just to back up what Councillor Allison has said, if you look at the papers on page 318, this is obviously a submission from the applicant, but you can see the aerial photograph of the site, and there's no way without major investment that could ever return to usable agricultural land. And I would back up Councillor Allison's suggestion that this is an adequate and appropriate site for housing development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions or comments? Okay, taking on board the comments from members, if we consider that there is adequate justification for the erection of a new dwelling house, we could grant planning permission subject to conditions. Our options here today are uphold, reverse or vary the planning decision. I'll now invite for decisions and reasons behind those decisions. Councillor Alec Allison.
Thanks, Chair. I would move that we reverse the decision here. It is within the curtilage of the farm. There are no biodiversity issues, and quite simply there needs to be major works done to try and get any level of naturalisation to this piece of ground. So therefore it would be an ideal position to produce a house to help with the population in the rural area.
Councillor Allison, can you just please give us again your reasons for that, just for the record, please? Councillor Allison, can you just clarify your reasons again, please, just for the record?
Let me speak now, sorry. Where was I? Right. One, it is within the curtilage of the old farm steading, which already has development. Therefore, it is not encouraging spread. There is very little biodiversity in the ruins of old buildings. Three, what was three again? Sorry. Because there has been buildings on the site before, there will need to be major interventions to get it back to a natural condition. And four, it will help with NPF4's policy of increasing rural population.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Can I ask if somebody would second Councillor Allison? Councillor Graham Scott, please. Councillor Shearer, first of all, sorry.
I will second Councillor Allison's motion.
Thank you. Okay, I would also like to move an amendment to that we accept the officer's recommendations for refusal.
I'll second it.
Okay, we will then take this to a vote.
Okay, so if I can just go back over the motion and amendment. So the motion, as proposed by Councillor Allison and seconded by Councillor Shearer, is to reverse the decision and grant planning permission subject to condition. For the reasons as follows: it's within the curtilage of the old farm steading. There is very little biodiversity on site. It would need to have major intervention in order to get it back to a natural condition. And the site is ideal for development in terms of provision of housing in the rural area in terms of NPF 4. And the amendment, as moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Convery, is to uphold the officer's decision and refuse planning permission. I'm sorry, I've just hit the wrong button. If you just bear with me, folks. Okay, the vote is now live. If you could please indicate your preference. Thank you. Okay, all members have now indicated their voting preference. I will now stop the vote. So 6 members have voted in favour of the amendment and 3 members have voted in favour of the motion. I therefore declare the amendment carried. Thank you.
Thank you. A written notice will be issued within 28 days. We will then move on to agenda item number 6, please. Agenda item number 6, a review of case in respect of planning application P230406. These are pages 425 to 590. In your pack, the item before us today is a notice of review from Framed Estates on behalf of Waterfall Development Scotland Limited. The applicant is asking the PLRB to review the planning officer's determination to refuse an application for 2 dwelling houses with ancillary access, parking and landscaping at land 78 metres southwest of 1 Waterfall Meadows, Clegg, Lanark. Details of the proposal, the officer's report of handling and information submitted by the applicant are provided in our papers here today. The first point for the PLRB then is to consider and decide how to proceed with this review. The applicant has indicated that they consider no further procedure is required in the determination of the review. Taking account of what is in our papers, we have to decide whether they do in fact contain sufficient information for us to determine the review today, or if we need more written information, a hearing or a visit to the site. I do think that the information we have, plus the detailed photographs we have, does provide us with all we need to consider this review without either a site visit or hearing or any further written submissions. Do members therefore agree that we can proceed without a site visit, hearing or additional information?
Agreed.
Anyone otherwise minded? If not, then can we proceed to review? I will open the review for discussion. And having considered the information, I will just make comment on this, if I may. Having discussed and considered the information in the papers for this item and the context of the site, I am going to move that the PLRB overturn the refusal of planning permission and approve this application as an appropriate departure from a development plan. Whilst I note the proposal does not comply with policy 17 of MPF 4, development of the site was previously consented and the site is bordered on 3 sides by existing housing. I therefore believe that a departure from policy can be justified in this instance and at this specific location. I do not consider an approval here would undermine the wider rural area or the overall aims of the development plan, nor would it set a precedent that could be used to argue against the development plan and future proposals. I therefore move that we approve this proposal subject to conditions as a departure from a development plan on the grounds that additional housing be proposed here will not detract from the surrounding rural location and will allow the development of a wider site which is already substantially complete. I will then move that we can give planning permission.
I'll second it, Chair.
Anyone otherwise minded? Councillor David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to offer you my second, but Councillor Convery got in there in front of me. I would agree totally with the statement that you have made. It rounds off an existing development, and there is no need to refuse the development of this site at all. So I support your motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shearer. Are everyone then minded to accept? Okay. I will then adjourn the meeting until, we'll give us 5 minutes. We'll adjourn to 11 a.m. to allow us to look over the draft conditions for these to come back for approval. So we will reconvene at 11 a.m. These will be emailed and passed around. And we'll adjourn until 11. Thank you. Everybody had sufficient time just to read over the draft conditions? Agreed. Okay. We therefore agreed to accept the conditions, the draft conditions? Agreed. Anyone otherwise minded? Therefore, the decision of the PLRB is to grant the planning permission subject to the agreed conditions. I have no items of urgent business for agenda item number 7. Therefore, I will ask that we stop the recording of the meeting and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.